They cut down my trees for a better view. So I shut down the only road that led to their million-dollar homes. And the worst part is, they really thought I would just shrug and let it slide. I was at work when my sister called. It was a Tuesday, slow morning. I remember because I was halfway through a stale turkey sandwich at my desk when my phone buzzed. I almost ignored it. Jenna never calls in the middle of the day unless something's wrong. I picked up, and before I could even say hello, she goes, "Caleb, you need to come home. Right now." Her voice wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It was shaky. That quiet kind of panic that sinks straight into your gut. I asked her what happened, and she just said, "They're gone." "What's gone?" "Your trees." I didn't ask anything else. I grabbed my keys, told my boss there was an emergency, and drove home faster than I should have. The whole way back, I kept telling myself maybe it was a misunderstanding. Maybe she meant branches. Maybe storm damage. Maybe I was about to overreact. But when I turned onto my gravel driveway and saw the eastern edge of my property, my stomach dropped so hard it felt like missing a step in the dark. All 6 of them were gone. 6 white oaks, 40 years old, taller than the roofline of my house. They'd lined the edge of my land like quiet sentries, thick trunks, heavy limbs that turned gold in the fall and deep green in the summer. My dad used to sit under those trees with a folding chair and a thermos of coffee when I was a kid. I learned how to climb on those trees. I carved my initials into one of them when I was 12. They weren't just landscaping. Now there were 6 flat, pale stumps cut clean and low to the ground. Fresh sawdust still clung to the edges like powdered sugar. Branches were gone. Logs were gone. It looked surgical, efficient, intentional. There was a white business card tucked into my front door handle. Silver embossed lettering. Alder Ridge Timber Services. I didn't hire anybody. Jenna was standing on the porch when I walked up. She had her arms folded tight across her chest like she was trying to hold herself together. "They came this morning," she said. "Big trucks. I thought you knew." I called the number on the card right there in the yard. A guy picked up on the second ring, cheerful voice, like he was answering about lawn care. I said, "Why did your crew cut down my trees?" He didn't hesitate. "We had a work order from the Brookstone Heights Homeowners Association." I blinked. "I'm not part of Brookstone Heights." Silence. "Then, you're not." "No. I live below it." Another pause. I could hear him clicking a mouse. Paper shuffling. "Sir, the HOA authorized removal of trees obstructing the Western Valley view from lots 12 through 18. Those lots sat uphill from me, behind a gated entrance. Big stone sign. Manicured lawns. Custom homes with wraparound decks and glass railings. And apparently, my trees were blocking their sunset." I said, very slowly, "Those trees were on my land." He cleared his throat. "Let me look into this and call you back." He never called back. I walked the property line that afternoon. I know that line better than I know my own living room. My grandfather bought this land before there was even a paved road out here. 20 acres back then. I've got 8 left after some of it was sold off years ago. The oaks sat well within my boundary, downhill from Brookstone Heights, right where the land starts sloping into the valley. 5 years ago, the developers came in and built that gated community. Granite mailboxes, private security, big promises about elevated living. They marketed those homes based on the view. Endless sunset, rolling valley, no obstructions. Except there were obstructions. 6 of them. And they were mine. I drove up to the Brookstone Heights gate that evening. Tall black iron bars. Keypad. Security camera aimed right at your face. I pressed the call button. A guard answered. Polite, bored tone. I told him I needed to speak to whoever authorized cutting down trees on my property. He said someone would be in touch. 2 hours later, my phone rang. The name that popped up wasn't saved, but the voice was practiced, controlled, the kind of voice that leads board meetings. "Caleb Mercer?" he said. "Yeah. This is Victor Langley, president of the Brookstone Heights HOA." Of course it was. He spoke like a man who assumed he was about to resolve a minor inconvenience. He said they believed the trees were on common land adjacent to the development. He said if there was a misunderstanding, they would reimburse me for the removal expense. I actually laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was so absurd I didn't know what else to do. "You're going to reimburse me," I said, "for cutting down 40-year-old oak trees I never asked you to touch?" A pause. "We're willing to discuss reasonable compensation." Reasonable. I could see my dad sitting under those trees. I could see the tire swing that used to hang from the third one. I could see the way the late afternoon light filtered through those leaves. And this man was offering to cut me a check like he'd dented my mailbox. I said, "Before we talk about compensation, let's talk about something else." He waited. "You know that road leading into Brookstone Heights?" "Yes. That road crosses my land." Another pause. Shorter this time. "I'm aware there's an easement." I leaned against one of the fresh stumps and looked up at the houses on the hill. "That's interesting," I said, "because I don't recall signing one." And that's when his voice changed, just a little. But I didn't push it. Not yet. I thanked him for his time and hung up. That night, I didn't sleep much. I kept replaying everything. The arrogance, the assumption, the idea that they could just remove something from my property because it improved their view. By morning, I wasn't angry anymore. I was focused. And when I get focused, I get thorough. The next morning, I called a surveyor before I even poured coffee. His name was Martin Reyes, older guy, steady hands, sunburned neck, the kind of man who trusts paperwork more than promises. I told him I needed my property lines confirmed, officially marked, no gray areas. He asked if something had happened. I said, yeah, something happened. By noon, he was out there with his equipment, orange flags, metal stakes, laser level. I walked the land with him, from the tree line down to the bend in the access road. That road curved right through the northwest corner of my property before climbing toward the Brookstone Heights gate. Martin flipped through county records on his tablet. Frowned. "You've got no recorded easement here," he said. "I know. Developers usually lock that down before pouring asphalt." They didn't. He raised an eyebrow. "That's bold." It wasn't bold. It was lazy. Or arrogant. Or both. Here's what I found out digging through old paperwork that afternoon. 22 years ago, when this area was mostly open pasture, the original developer had approached the previous owner of my land, an older widower named Thomas Grady. They'd made a handshake agreement. Let them cut a temporary access road across his corner while they built Phase 1. They'd formalize it later. Later never came. Thomas passed away. The property went to his estate. I bought it 5 years ago, right before Brookstone Heights finished construction. And nobody, not the developer, not the HOA, not the county, ever filed a permanent easement. For 5 years they'd been driving across my land because no one stopped them. And I guess they figured I wouldn't either. That afternoon I called Victor back. He answered quicker this time. "Caleb." "Victor, I had a survey done today." Silence. "There is no recorded easement on my property." Another pause, longer now. "Our legal team's understanding is that access has been established." Established doesn't mean legal. He shifted into that corporate calm again. "Caleb, I'm sure we can resolve this amicably. Let's not escalate." Escalate. That word sat funny in my chest. Because from where I was standing, they'd escalated when they cut down 6 trees without asking. I said, "You're right. Let's resolve it." And then I hung up. I didn't threaten. I didn't argue. I just made a plan. By Tuesday morning, there was a flatbed truck parked at the edge of my property with steel posts stacked like spears. I hired a fencing crew from 2 towns over. Paid cash deposit. No delays. They didn't ask questions. They just followed the survey markers. 8-foot chain link. Industrial grade. Set in concrete. Running straight across the access road 15 feet inside my boundary line. We installed a wide double gate right in the center. Heavy-duty hinges. Thick steel lock. When the last post was set and the concrete poured, I stood there looking at it. It wasn't pretty. It wasn't meant to be. It was simple, clear, unmistakable. Private property. Wednesday morning at 6:12 a.m., my phone exploded. Calls. Texts. Unknown numbers. One after another. Victor called 6 times before I answered. His voice was different now. "No polish. You cannot block that road. It's on my land. You're preventing residents from accessing their homes." "I didn't prevent anything," I said. "I secured my property." "Caleb, this is illegal." "It's not. There's no recorded easement. Check with your attorney." He must have already been in the middle of doing that, because he hung up on me. By 8 a.m., I could hear the commotion from down the hill. SUVs backed up along the gravel stretch. A landscaping truck stuck at the gate. A woman in yoga pants arguing with the security guard like he personally built the fence. Around 9:30, Victor's number popped up again. His voice this time, tight. "We've confirmed there's no formal easement recorded." "I know. This road has been used continuously for 5 years. Doesn't make it yours. You're putting us in a difficult position." I looked out my kitchen window at the valley, wide open now without the oaks framing it. You put me in a difficult position when you cut down my trees. There it was. The center of it all. Not the road. Not the money. The assumption. He tried another angle. Let's talk compensation. We're prepared to offer $10,000 for the trees. 10,000. I actually smiled. Victor, I said, do you know how much it costs to transplant mature white oaks? A pause. Significantly more than 10,000. I'm not interested in covering your mistake with a check. I want those trees replaced. Same size. Professionally installed. Guaranteed. That may not be feasible. Then I guess the gate stays. There was noise in the background on his end. Voices. Probably a board meeting in crisis mode. He lowered his voice. People are threatening legal action. They're welcome to try. That afternoon, a police cruiser rolled up near the fence. Deputy Collins stepped out, someone I'd known since high school. He walked up slow, hands resting on his belt. Caleb, he said, glancing at the gate. You trying to start a war? Just protecting my property. He scratched his chin. They called it in as unlawful obstruction. And it's your land. No easement on record. Civil matter. He leaned closer. You sure you want this heat? I looked past him at the line of vehicles stuck on the other side. Frustrated faces. Phones out. Recording. They weren't worried about heat when they fired up chainsaws on my trees. He nodded once. Fair enough. By Thursday, the tension had shifted. The HOA sent out an emergency email to residents explaining there was a temporary access issue. Temporary. Like a pothole. But it wasn't temporary. Not unless they were willing to fix what they broke. Friday afternoon, Victor called again. Different tone. No edge. No authority. Caleb, he said quietly, we owe you an apology. I didn't answer right away. We acted on an assumption. That was a mistake. Yes, I said, it was. We are prepared to fully fund the replacement of all 6 trees. Mature specimens. Installed by a certified arborist. At our expense. I let him sit in that silence. And, he continued, we're willing to formalize a permanent easement agreement for the access road. There it was. Terms. I asked. We'd compensate you for the easement. How? A one-time payment. I shook my head, even though he couldn't see me. No. If you're going to use my land, it's going to be structured, recorded, with a monthly access fee. Silence. You're serious. Very. He exhaled slowly. What number are we talking about? I looked at the empty stretch where my trees used to stand, the open valley now fully visible to the houses above. 2,000 a month. He didn't answer immediately. I could almost hear the math happening in his head. And if we decline? The gate stays. Another long pause. I'll need to take this to the board. Of course you will. When we hung up, I didn't feel triumphant. I felt steady. For the first time since those trees were cut down, the balance had shifted. They wanted their view. I wanted respect. Victor didn't call back that night. He didn't call Saturday either. But early Sunday afternoon, while I was out back clearing brush that the tree crew had left behind, my phone buzzed again. Same number. Same tight little pause before I answered. Caleb, he said, and this time there was no edge at all, just fatigue. The board has agreed to your terms. I leaned on the handle of my rake and looked uphill toward Brookstone Heights. You could see the roofs through the bare space where my oaks used to stand. Without those trees, the houses looked closer, bigger, like they'd crept down the hill while I wasn't looking. Spell it out, I said. We will cover the full cost of sourcing and transplanting 6 mature white oaks, minimum caliper consistent with what was removed, installed by a licensed arborist, with a 3-year survival guarantee. We will record a legal easement for the access road with the county, and we will pay you a monthly access fee of $2,000, adjusted every 5 years for inflation. He said it like he was reading from a script, which he probably was. And the apology? I asked. You'll have a written statement from the HOA acknowledging the error and the unauthorized removal. I let that sit for a second. All right, I said. Draw it up. My attorney will review it. There was another pause, softer this time. For what it's worth, Victor added, this got out of hand. I almost laughed. It got out of hand when your board decided my property was disposable. He didn't argue. The paperwork took a couple weeks. In the meantime, the gate stayed locked, but I agreed to open it for specific hours each morning and evening so residents could get in and out. I wasn't trying to trap anyone. I just wanted the message to be clear. You don't get to bulldoze over someone and call it landscaping. The day the agreement was signed, Victor came down in person. First time we'd actually stood face to face. He was taller than I expected, mid-50s, pressed polo shirt, expensive watch. The kind of guy who's used to people nodding when he speaks. We met by the fence. He extended his hand. I shook it. "I'm sorry," he said, not like a press release, not like a board statement, but like a man who'd had a rough couple of weeks. "I believe you are," I said. He gave a tight smile. "You've made your point." That wasn't quite it, but I let it go. A month later, a convoy of trucks rolled onto my property again. This time I was home. This time I had the contracts in my pocket. The arborist walked me through every step. Root balls wrapped in burlap the size of hot tubs. Cranes lifting each tree carefully into pre-dug pits. Soil treated. Irrigation lines laid. When the first oak was lowered into place, I felt something in my chest loosen for the first time since that Tuesday afternoon. They weren't the exact same trees. They couldn't be. You can't replace 40 years of wind and seasons and childhood memories with a receipt. But they were solid, strong, alive. Over the next few days, all 6 stood upright again along my eastern line. Not identical, but close enough that when the leaves came in that spring, the valley view from Brookstone Heights softened just a little. Not blocked entirely, just reminded. The fence stayed. The gate stayed. The easement was recorded properly, clean and legal, with my name on it, and a line item in their monthly HOA budget labeled access fee. $2,000 hits my account like clockwork on the first of every month. Sometimes I sit on my back porch in the evening and watch the headlights wind down that road across my land. I don't feel spiteful about it. I don't feel victorious either. Mostly, I feel aware. Aware of how easy it is for people with power and money to convince themselves that something inconvenient must belong to them. A view, a piece of land, a row of trees that's been there longer than their subdivision. A few residents from Brookstone Heights have come down since then. Some apologized personally. One woman brought over a pie and said she had no idea the trees weren't on HOA property. Another guy, younger, early 30s, told me quietly that he'd voted against the removal but got outnumbered. Not everyone was kind, though. I've gotten looks at the grocery store, heard comments about how I held the neighborhood hostage. One man said I extorted the HOA. Maybe. Or maybe I forced a conversation they didn't want to have. About boundaries. About entitlement. About what happens when you mistake silence for permission. There's a part of me that wonders how it would have played out if I'd just accepted a check. $10,000. Quick signature. Fence never goes up. Life moves on. The valley would be wide open from those decks. My land would be a little lighter, a little emptier. And I think something in me would have shifted too. Something quiet but permanent. Instead, every time I see those new oaks swaying in the wind, I remember that moment standing over 6 fresh stumps, feeling small and furious and dismissed. And I remember deciding not to stay that way. Victor and I aren't friends, but we're civil. There's a certain respect there now. Not warm, not easy, but real. He once told me during a follow-up meeting, most people would have backed down. I told him, most people weren't here before the gates. That's the thing about land. It holds memory, longer than money does. So yeah, they cut down my trees for their view. And I shut down their road until they understood the cost. Some folks say I went too far. Others say I didn't go far enough. I'll let you decide. If you were in my position, what would you have done? Taken the check? Left the road open? Or built the fence like I did and let the silence on the other side do the talking? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read more of them than you'd think. And if you believe respect matters more than convenience, hit like, subscribe, and share this with someone who's dealt with a power-hungry HOA or a neighbor who forgot where the property line was. Because sometimes justice doesn't come from a courtroom. Sometimes it comes from knowing exactly where your land begins and having the nerve to defend it.